Ready? Okay, so the bulk of the information is going to be on communication for performance, and this is a crash course, right? Through Epiphany Advisors, we have a full training that is between 4 to 5 hours long, and we go in depth into behavioral tendencies, analyzing for example, tonalities and different aspects of it. Right now, we're going to do an overview. It's going to be about 45 to an hour or so, and I think you guys are going to have a pretty good idea what those things that you're holding mean. Everybody got a card? Okay, cool. Those are killer reference cards. I mean, I use them every day. I go back to them and just refresh on that stuff, and you'll understand more about it in a little bit. Hopefully, if I do my job right. Engagement. Engagement is what we call rapport. I mean, you see it over and over in sales training. Build rapport with the client. You have to have rapport to do this, to do that, and limited time and all that stuff. It becomes a challenge, right? So, I mean, there are 5 factors that define how fast you're going to be able to build rapport with a seller. One is competence, communication, the use of feedback, how you actually use the information that they're giving you back when you're having a conversation, and appearance and your relative position at the end of the information exchange. Okay? In order to understand our relationships with other people, we must first understand ourselves. Meaning, everybody has their own perspective, right? We build perspective based on experiences and preconditioning and past knowledge of whatever happened in our lives. So with that in mind, when you have a two-way communication exchange, you might be saying one thing, but the person might be understanding something else, just simply because they perceive the world and the information in a different way than you do, okay? These are actual facts. When you're in a conversation exchange, you have 38% of that information that's being transferred is being transferred to the tonality. So if you have, for example, have you ever said something nice to your spouse or something that you didn't think was bad, maybe not necessarily nice? And then they said, well, they still got mad at you? It's happened to me. You're like, it's not what you said, it's how you said it. Anybody? Can anybody relate? Ooh, yeah. Tough crowd. All right, well, that's what happened. The tonality, I mean, that's kicking in the 38% of it, right? 55% of the communication that's happening, like right now you can probably tell I'm nervous because I'm pacing, I'm walking back and forth, I'm moving my arms and all that stuff. But 55% is body language. When you're looking at a seller, when you're across the table from somebody else, you're going to be able to figure out whether or not the stuff that you're telling them is making sense. Is it something that you're actually building rapport and flow in the conversation, or is it something that's building friction and putting a stop to what you want to convey? All right, if they're crossing their arms, if they're frowning. I mean, there's some simple stuff like that happens subconsciously, not necessarily them thinking about what's happening, but it's just natural responses that you can start reading and building on that and to find out whether or not you have true rapport. And 7%, it's actual words. All right, so it's what you're saying, the context of what you're saying. 7% it's what's going to get through as far as communication. Okay. So with that in mind, and meaning that not everybody speaks the same language, because we have different perspectives. So we may have same meaning in words. However, how we perceive them is different, right? How do we build influence? It's a pretty straightforward process. We have data that we observe, right? So we either observe or we listen to a conversation, and then from that data, when we select, everybody has selective hearing. Like going back to that scenario earlier with a spouse, selective hearing. I know my wife listens to the stuff that she wants to listen to, and not the stuff that doesn't really help her. Same here, guilty. So to that we add a meaning, and we start making assumptions based on that. From the assumptions, you draw conclusions and create the beliefs that lead you to reactions. So you go up a ladder of the influence process. What happens is that when you're talking to a seller, for example, if you start telling them a story and they the data doesn't really make sense, eventually they're gonna have a belief that you're not being honest. Based on this process right here. They have selective, hearing. They're going to start adding meaning to the words that you're saying, to your tonality, to your body posture, to your smile or your frown, how aggressive you are whenever you're talking to somebody and across the table. and they're going to take an action on that. And in our world, it's the difference between getting a contract signed or having them go over to the next investor, right? So you have observable data, you add meaning to it, create assumptions, and that leads to your action. Creating, and all that, it's catapulted off of your perspective. What does that say? Say it. What does that say?
Sell.
Again.
Sell.
Again.
Sell.
Again.
Sell.
Again.
Sell.
Again.
Sell.
Again.
Sell.
What do cows drink? No, they don't. They drink water, people. All right? So it took me 10 seconds to influence a whole room of people, and guide them to a different answer. We all, they don't drink milk, they drink water, right? Does that make sense? But that's how easy information can be misconstrued when you're having a conversation back and forth. Just based on your immediate perspective and what they're feeling from you and what they're getting from you. So it's going to shape their perspective at that moment in time. All right? We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. How does perspective work? I mean, we have what we think, and that in turn, guides what we say, right? So the way that you're thinking coming into an appointment is going to guide what you're going to say to that seller. And then it's going to guide what we do, and it's going to guide how we are perceived. So if we walk in there, if we think that the most important thing for us, for example, is money, right? And we walk into an appointment thinking, no, the most important thing is money. So this seller is going to be super concerned about money. More than likely, we're going to get a tunnel vision on trying to format and frame the business deal around the money, all right? With sellers, especially for the guys that haven't done any wholesale transactions yet or anything like that, when you have a seller, a lot of the times, and I mean a lot, a great percentage of the time, it's not the money that's the biggest concern. It may be ease of transaction, it may be not dealing with repairs on the property, maybe stuff like that. But what you're thinking coming into the appointment, it's going to make a huge, huge difference as to how you are perceived at the end of it. Are they going to be thinking this guy's just worried about squeezing every single dime out of me, or is he really giving me some advice that's going to be helpful? Okay, it's one thing to keep in mind. All right, what do you guys see there? All right, who here can relate to the lion? Show of hands. Just one person, really? Come on, guys. I know it's 6 p.m. and whatnot, but work a little with me. All right, who can relate to the lion? Show of hands. All right. Who can relate to the cat? We have a lot of cats. Really? Nobody relates? And then just people don't. All right. Cat. All right. Lion. Why lion?
Strength. Aggressive.
Aggressive? Okay. And then cat. So we have a perspective of these, these two, right? Our idea is that, cats may be, pets and whatnot, and lions may be, aggressive. But in reality, lions, they're not really too active. We're hustlers. We're out there every single day. We're pounding the streets, knocking on walls, making phone calls, and trying to get deals done, right? However, a lion sleeps about 23 hours out of the day. Okay? A cat, on the other hand, is very independent. They'll never go hungry. They're not pack animals, so they can survive by themselves. So the perspective of it and the story that we built behind it makes us think, right? What's the story, the meaning that we're going to give to this? Same thing, what is the meaning that seller is going to give you when you show up? How many here have walked through a door and you're automatically just, greeted with a skeptical look? Like, okay, so you know exactly what I'm talking about. People have this idea about investors, and it's because of the stories and everything that's come before us. Okay, so it's our job. If we're able to turn that over on the table when we're talking to them, that's what creates the rapport. Okay. How many here are familiar with DISC, behavioral tendencies? Okay, so we have a few. Gotcha. Think of DISC as the universal language. We have English, we have Spanish, I have Spanglish, but when you start understanding tendencies and behavioral tendencies, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter who you're talking to, because you're going to be able to form and results-oriented. This is huge for a driver. If you want to think about a personality that's kind of like that, I can think of one guy. His name's Sean Terry. He's got a killer podcast, And I mean, he's pretty adventuresome. He's pretty daring, decisive, direct, innovative. He's always coming up with new stuff. Problem solver, definitely. Results oriented. You want to see results. I mean, that would be a good example of a driver there. Your promoters or your high I's, they're charming, confident, open-minded, very optimistic, and very talkative. So normally your promoters are the people that, whenever they walk into a party, they're there. Like, all right, and then they start mingling. If you go to a networking event or ASRIA or somewhere like that, I mean, you'll see, that person that walks in is just, happy to collect cards. Some people just get them to, for the networking, it's because, what you're there to do. And then some people are just having a ball. Okay, that's your promoters there. Supporters are amicable, friendly, good listeners. So if you have a problem, if you need a hug, go talk to somebody who's a high S, and they'll honestly be open to the information that you gotta give them. They're very good team players and understanding. Okay. Your analytics or analyzers are accurate, conscientious, very courteous, and systematic. These are the people that love, for example, spreadsheets. They love, data. When you're looking at, if you want to put this in context, when you're looking at a seller, and have you ever come into an appointment and somebody greets you at the door, turns their back on you and tells you, let's do a walkthrough, do whatever you need to do, and then give me your bottom line. I mean, that would be somebody who's quick to make decisions, right? I mean, that's somebody who wants to push the bottom line and get to the point quick. I mean, that would be a driver. A promoter is somebody who starts smiling and then talk to you and try to build that relationship. Sun's hitting you, huh?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm trying to dance around it, help you out, man. But it's like, all right, I'll do this. So I mean, when you have a promoter, it's somebody who they greet you honestly, and they have that livelihood about them, right? So you tag them as promoters. Supporters. Have you ever sat at a table with somebody and then next thing you know, you're finding out about their ex and their kids' issues, and they just spill their guts out on the table? I mean, that would be what a supporter does. They have that. If you build enough rapport quickly enough, I mean, you'll get that information. And you don't even have. I mean, it's just based off a conversation, and then they'll share. They love sharing. Analytics, it's the person that you have to give them a full status of, how'd you get your comps? What's the market activity for the last, 3 years? And then once you do that, they'll want to know, 6 years, what happened? How are you, getting to your offer price? And they want to see data and concise backup of the information that you're giving them. Okay, so that's how they play out. The emotions that are tied to each one of these personalities. For a driver, it's anger. Okay, so they're quick to anger. Whenever under stress, it's somebody who may lose a cap real quick. The biggest fear is being taken advantage of. They have a need to be direct, and this is me. I'm a high red and high yellow, and always looking for results. Okay, so that drives you. It's like, okay, this makes sense. Doesn't make sense. Boom, let's move on. Can you think of people? As we're going through these, start kind of tagging people in your family and friends, and like, oh, that person could be that, because that's how you get it. I mean, through practice and just constant repetition of it. The emotion for promoters is optimism. Okay, so they're always looking at the positive side of things, and they're called sunshine yellows, and they fear social rejection. Okay, they have a need to interact, and they want the experience. I mean, so the conversation, the livelihood of it. Okay. And I know moving, it's going to be like a fire hose of information. I'm moving kind of fast, but for the sake of time. But your S's are non-emotional. The fear is loss of security. Have you ever been sitting with a client and the biggest thing is, well, I don't want an investor to take advantage of me. This happened to this person because I heard it somewhere, and they told me to watch out, and so you have that sense of fear being security. I mean, has that ever happened? Has anybody seen it? Yeah? No? Yeah? Maybe? Okay, you have. Come on, dude. All right. So your analytics, the emotion is fear. And they have a big fear of criticism of their work. Okay, so whenever they they do something or they calculation or figure out, for example, if you go to an appointment and you talk to somebody who's a high analytic, make sure that you ran your analysis because they already did. I mean, they already looked at Zillow, Redfin, every other thing that can possibly be Googled in the world of real estate to figure out where their pricing is. All right. They have a high need for procedures. They look for proof and evidence. So if you're gonna state your argument and throw a lowball offer or something like that, make sure that you're able to back it up somehow. Otherwise, you'll lose them in a heartbeat. Conductors. How do you identify each of the behavioral tendencies? Conductors are strong, clear, confident, and fast-paced. They're the person that's gonna, oftentimes sign a contract right there and then after 15 minutes of meeting with you. It's happened a bunch of times for me. Volume is the loudest. So whenever they're saying something, if they want to tell you something, you can't get around it. I mean, you'll know. They use direct eye contact, point fingers, and then they lean towards you whenever they're having a conversation. Why? Because they want to be heard. Okay. Promoters, they're very animated, very friendly, have rambling explanations. Sometimes they'll talk for 30 minutes, and like at the end of a 30-minute ramble session is like, what happened? What did it just talk about? Or how did we get to this? I go on a lot of tangents. I'm a high I. So I'll start talking about something, and then I see a shiny object, and I'm like, oh, I'll follow that. Next thing you know, I'm out of the picture. Volume is fairly loud. Body language, smiles a lot, and has expressive gestures. So, I mean, it's a big presence. On the other hand, supportives, they have a low voice tone, and they have that warm feeling. A lot of the stuff that they look for is to engage and actually build a relationship. Okay, volume is soft. The body language is small hand gestures and relaxed, non-emotional. Non-emotional being, if you ever play poker with somebody who's a high supportive, watch out. I mean, their face is gonna have this Steven Seagal look on their face. No expressions, no smiles, but there's a lot of stuff going on in the back. I mean, they may be jumping because they had aces all across. IT, we have an issue, IT. Guys, don't look at the password. And we're back. Nope. Did you guys notice that IT didn't move a finger? Thanks, guys. Yeah, supporters. Yeah. They sat there analyzing the whole thing. Like, maybe I should get up. Nah. A supporter would have gotten up and helped me out. So then you have your analytics, right? Little to no modulation. They're precise, cool, and aloof. We call them the cool blues. They have a quiet volume and that kind of monotone voice. They have few hand gestures, direct eye contact, and really, really controlled in their demeanor. My daughter is a high analytic. I mean, like way high, right? So whenever I show up, I'm a high red and high I, so I want to, feel the love and then make everybody happy and smiles and everything. Like, hey, honey, how are you? She'll look at me from the couch, because she's watching like Gossip Girls or something like that, and look at me and go like, that's how I know she loves me. It's just, I understand it now. Like, it makes perfect sense, okay? We're gonna get into how to interpret the conversations in a little bit there. Do a couple of, cool scenarios there. A tendency under stress for a conductor is to be impatient, lack tact, be aggressive, argumentative, opinionated, and demanding. So basically, if you're a high red and you get under stress, you want stuff done quick. I mean, you start looking at your resources, what can I do, what can happen, you start getting irritated, stress feels, it's like, like for example, me, in my case, I go to my office, I tell my wife, you know what, I'm having one of those days. And she knows, she knows all about this. And like, okay, if I spend there, more than 6 hours, just drag me out of my ears and then make me, some dinner or something like that, and then we'll be good. But so I work my way around it. Otherwise, I'll stay mad, the whole time until my stress levels drop. Tendency under stress for a promoter is self-promoting, overly optimistic, so they're always looking at the positive side of things. If you have somebody that, take for example, a contractor or a seller, right, came in and they didn't sign the contract with you. They had a list of 6 other investors that came by. It's never happened. And they ended up signing the contract with somebody else. Somebody who's a high I is going to be, well, at least they got a better price, and really feel genuine and honest about it. You know what I'm saying? When a red is going to be like, what the hell? Make sense? Is it clicking? Is it making sense a little bit?
Sure.
Right. Okay. Cool. I see a couple like this, and then some kind of wavy. All right. Tendency under stress. It's non-demonstrative. I knew it. See, that's how I keep saying it. People tell me we're wrong. Non-demonstrative. They're unconcerned, hesitant, and inflexible. The one thing to watch out for supportives. I mean, they genuinely want to help out. They're going to be the person that if you're cold and it's snowing outside and they have a jacket on, they'll take off their jacket and give it to you. Okay? Why? Because that's their behavioral tendency. I can think of more than 4 or 5 people in my family that would do that all day long. Okay? And start tagging people. It really helps. So on the other hand, whenever they make a decision, it's super hard to make them change their mind or influence them or persuade them to change their mind. They build up a wall. If they don't like you, boom. They're also the people that hold like mad grudges forever. And it's hard to get across that kind of stuff after you. I mean, if you ruined it with one of them, it's got to be really hard to get back on the horse. Okay. Tendency under stress for analytics is going to be very pessimistic. They get picky, fuzzy, and overly critical. Overly critical of their work, for the most part. Their work, in our case, their research. If they ran bad comps on Zillow or something like that, and they thought they were going to get more money. I mean, I've seen it time and time again. That's what happens. Okay, so I mean that is a very quick kind of raw overview of some of the behavioral tendencies, or the behavioral tendencies and some of the principles behind it. We just went over 3 principles right now. I mean, there's a lot of them on each one. What I want to talk about now, it's what to consider whenever you're talking to different behavioral tendencies. What do they focus? When you're talking to a producer or a driver, you want to think about what, okay? What do you have to offer? If you go through the door, the biggest thing in their mind is going to be what? What am I going to get for the property? What is the bottom line? And not necessarily money. It could be that they want the ease of moving out and not doing any repairs. Is that what I'm going to get? So they're looking for that what answer, right? It's one thing to keep in mind when you're framing or when you're adapting your conversation as you go through it. For analytics, high C is going to be how. Their question is how the hell did you get to your numbers? Why are you giving me $40,000 for this $100,000 home? All right, and then you have to be able to support that with your comps, with days on market, data, available inventory, whatever you can compile, because you got to do your homework before you go on every appointment. Reason being, because you have to tailor it. I mean, you just never know what you're going to expect. Maybe you talk to a client on the phone, and you were able to tag him, right? They're like, okay, this person might be analytical. Oh, this person might be a high driver, so it can be in and out quick. But when you show up, there's somebody else with them. And they're really counting on their opinion and whatnot, and they may end up being supportive, analytic, or something like that. So just keep that in mind whenever you're drafting something. As you get more practice, you're going to be able to craft your conversation and frame your offer based off of that stuff. So when you're talking analytical, think how. Okay, we're not going to get into the DI. That's another behavioral tendency. We go into that on the full workshop. But your S's, your supportives, I mean, they're thinking, take it easy. Okay, that's the person that's gonna wanna hold back, and then, can you leave the contract behind? Can you let me take a look at it? Can you, contract behind is kind of like a sensitive topic, because a lot of times, they'll use them, to negotiate, a better deal with another investor and tell them, this is what we got. What happens? The next guy comes along, they say, I'll give you $1,000 above that, and then you lose the contract. All right, if you build enough rapport, with somebody who's a high S, a true high S, I mean, more than likely they're gonna call you back. 70% of the stuff that I lock, it's based on follow-ups. And follow-ups being not necessarily the highest offer. I mean, how many times?
Will you repeat what you just said, the percentage?
70?
7? Did you hear that?
70, 70.
Follow-up. Sorry, go ahead, what were you gonna ask?
Yeah, no, I mean, how many times have we seen it where we've actually, our offer has been lower, but because of the rapport built, you know, they'll come back because they have that connection established. So it's not always the money. It's not always the bottom dollar that you're able to offer. I mean, we're in it to make money, right? I mean, a lot of times their concern is not necessarily the financials. It's going to be the ease of something, not dealing with maybe a relative that's in the property or doing an eviction because they don't want to deal with that friction in relationships. So, you know, looking at that stuff. So these people need time. Whenever you have a high S, they need time to process it, not necessarily think about the deal because maybe they already made up their mind, but just to be ready emotionally. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay, and then you have your integrators who, basically, I mean, if you set up everything right and they like you, I mean, they're gonna go with the person they like out of, you know, the whole stack. Of course, you have to, you know, find out what the true value is, and is it money, is it, you know, something else. But if you have two people, they're gonna pick the one that they like more than the one that makes, you know, sense or is more analytical or is giving them more data. Okay. That's a description of the graph again that we do in the trimetrics. So you have your adaptive behavior. It's how you are at work and how you conform to your environment. For example, what we have here is the energy line. Anything above the energy line, it's a characteristic in your life. So it actually pops up in your behavioral tendencies. Everybody has all of them, right? I mean, we don't have extremes that, you know, somebody's just one red and you don't have, you know, in a normal, you know, personality, you have a mixture of all four, right? So you have an energy line. Anything above that is going to come out in your behavior. Anything below that, it's more recessive. I mean, it doesn't mean that you can't, you know, jump to it. That's a cool thing about tendencies. Once we realize what the tendencies are, we're able to change them, right? So if we're talking to somebody who's highly supportive, and I, for example, I'm a high red, I'm a, you know, faster pace, I like conversations quick, to the point, I know I have to dial it down and speak at their pace, you know? Maybe mirror some of the, you know, conversation that's going on, mirror some of the body movement and that sort of stuff. All right, but it's always changeable, so you can adapt to it. When you have your natural tendencies, and then you're moving to something, you know, a work environment, for example. Let's take this one. This guy's he's got a high S, right? So it's high supportive. And my clicker doesn't work, or my laser doesn't work on the TV. I'm sorry, I know I'm covering a lot of stuff for you guys here, but okay. So whenever he shifts into work mode, and his adaptive style kicks in, his supportive behavioral tendency drops, right? But his influence rises a little bit, so it levels out. So more than likely, his job, it's a type where he's got to interact with people, maybe customer service or something like that, okay? So that's his adaptive style. You can see that his regular style is got to be a high red or high driver, right? So it's more to the point. I mean, normally, whenever he is in his element, you know, he likes to have that behavioral response. However, at work, he's got to dial it down a little bit. So this, to me, looks like something that would, you know, conform with, you know, a customer service, you know, position or something like that. So when you start looking at your positions like that, and strengths and weaknesses, I mean, you can start placing your people in, you know, call it the bus, and placing the right people in the right seats of the business. Okay. Behavioral styles may vary widely. It's very important not to read just one signal, okay? So there's not, it's a compilation of everything. That's why we have, you know, the disc analysis and all that stuff, because it's all a compilation. So you may see traits or higher, stronger traits of one particular behavioral tendency, but it doesn't mean they're just that, you know? You have to take into account everything else and figure out where the strengths and weaknesses are for each person. One thing this is really cool, the wheel, the behavioral tendency wheel. What happens when you have an analysis, a full analysis done, I mean, it's gonna peg you somewhere on the wheel. and I really hate that I'm covering the view for these guys here. It's gonna peg you somewhere in the wheel, right? Let's take, for example, somebody who's a high promoter, and they like to interact with people, and they have, they like that experience, and they want to have that conversation, and yet somewhere along the lines, their perspective, their story, something told them that it was gonna be a good idea, or they decided to go down the path of accounting, something that requires your adaptive personality to be highly analytical. I mean, maybe their natural tendency is not that high. So if you have a natural tendency here and an adaptive tendency here, I mean, at the end of the day, that's going to create a lot of stress. It's going to drain the energy from your work because most of the time you're adapting to it. You know what I mean? Once you have this, for example, if you have teams of people, 4 or 5 teams, you can plug them all in and then see where your overall organization is sitting at. We just did corporate training 2 weeks ago. Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, and we ran the will analysis. Everybody pegged them. It was a gym. We pegged them all, and they all ended up being on the lower right side of the promoter section, right? Cool thing about it, when we started looking into the into the profiles and really debriefing everything, I mean, they had a killer culture. Everybody just loved being around everybody else. I mean, the clients loved them because they were so cool to hang out with. You walked in and they have vibes, and music and everything playing. And I mean, you walked into that place, it was like, I want to be there, okay? They were all high promoters. However, when we looked at the back end of stuff, I mean, their processes, their profitability, and management everything was in disarray. Just because the core, the buildup of the talent was held up in the promoter stage. So when you start looking at, who are you going to place in a position of management? Who are you going to place, in a position of sales or in customer service? This is something to really keep in mind on. Besides, this is going off of a little bit, from the topic of the sellers, but when you're looking at putting together your overall team, this is a great tool, and it's one thing that Sean does pretty good. I mean, he allocates people as we come in, he'll size us up and then look at us like, okay, this makes sense, it doesn't make sense, and move forward with that.
Can I ask you a question about that?
Yes, sir.
Do you associate that with personnel contact? So if you're on the bottom side of the wheel where you're in that yellow part, and all of a sudden you actually have a seller or somebody you need to talk to, they're up in a blue part, are you complimenting or are you actually detracting from that person?
If I'm a high promoter.
Right. And then you're going to deal with somebody that's in that blue. What does that mean?
Oh, okay. It means, the natural behavioral tendencies, or the stuff that's going to kick in right out of, right at first impression is going to be offset. Why? Because, promoters are people driven. They want to have that interaction. They want to have that, experience and that conversation, right? However, when you have somebody who's analytic, they have that, like my daughter, like, what's up? So a lot, you don't have a straight connection right away. So you have to adapt to their conversation, right? If you're somebody who's very lively, who's uppity and jumpy all the time, dial it back a little because your rapport is not going to come in as quick. People like people who are like themselves, basically, and it's not for means of deceit. It's for means of really communication, honest communication. It's understanding that people want to be treated, the way they want to be treated, not the way we want to be treated. I mean, does that make sense? Okay, so when you're talking to somebody, dial it down if they're if you're too high and they're too low on expressions or introvert and extrovert and stuff like that, and adapt to their demeanor. I mean, that's going to go a long way as far as building their rapport. And then you build your context of your information based on their way of understanding the stuff. Why? Because you already have the training. You're already aware that you need there's different tendencies, that you need to shape your format, your conversation based on each tendency, and for the purpose of better communication. That's all it is, really. So, did that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay. If you guys want to throw a question, here and there, it's cool. Otherwise, at the end of it, we'll have a quick Q&A. And this is also capping on what you asked right now, how your style may initially react with various styles, right? So if you have 2 Ds, for example, I go to an appointment where I have another driver that opens the door. I mean, we're bros right out of the gate. Like, what's up? What's up? Yeah, what's up? 125. done. I mean, it's never happened like that, but it'd be cool. But it's because we have that initial rapport right out of the gate. So on the other hand, if I go to a supportive, and we have this ongoing joke here that, Sean tags them in different colors. I mean, I'm sure you saw the patterns of the color. Disc has a slight difference in colors, right? Sean has, for analytics, he does greens, and for supportives, he does yellows, right? So I call them avocados. To me, it's like, I go into an appointment and I sit down with an avocado and I know I have to slow down. I have to give all the information that I don't want to give because I'm a high red and I just want to be, so my behavioral tendency pushes me to want, to get, results quick. When when I'm meeting with somebody like that, it just can't happen like that. You have to dial it back. You have to slow it down. You have to give them and adapt to what they, process as information. Otherwise, you're going to lose them. You're not going to build rapport, and rapport is the key. I mean, that's what we are looking for at the end of the day. When you have a high I and a high D, the connection is also pretty good because they're both people-driven. Okay? Or I'm sorry, they're extroverts. High analytics and high drivers, one makes decisions really quick. The other one takes a while to analyze the data, figure out. So this is your person that does like, okay, it feels right. Yeah, let's do it. Boom. Okay, and then this is your person that, yeah, it may feel right, but let me look at the data, of 3 months, 6 months, and pile it all up and see what the averages are. And then once I have the averages, I'll divide it by 2 and then figure out where we end up. That kind of stuff. So they're very, very thorough. I wish I had that talent. I don't when I'm looking at detailed stuff. I like to build spreadsheets, not because I love spreadsheets, but because they get me to my purpose quicker. So for everything that I do in my processes, like I'll build a spreadsheet for that. Yeah, cool. Why? Because I do it once and then I just can come back and then plug numbers and make it happen again real quick. An analytical person, it's they enjoy that stuff. They enjoy rerunning numbers. They like that stuff. Your I's, connect just as well, if not better than your S's because they're people driven. So they're about relationships and building that connection. Does that make sense? Is it making sense so far? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Case study 1. Let's do a quick case study here. Known for loyalty to friends and as a team player, hard worker, and a thorough researcher. Puts a premium on friendship, sometimes to a fault. A person at peace with who they are, relates easily and warmly in small groups, but freezes in public forums. Is a warrior, top achiever, who is cool under pressure, family is sacred. Shortcomings may be his inability to act quickly to unexpected turn of events. What do you guys think? Yes. Oh, there you go. Nice, nailed it. Are we all on board? Okay, cool. Supportive, analytic. He said primary and secondary. So remember, everything is a combination of two. We have a dominant personality, and then we have a secondary right behind it. And then we have the other traits that we can adapt to.
So you're saying there's a dominant and an adaptive, and so the adaptive is how you work, but the dominant is under pressure, typically? So like if I'm a DI.
Well, it's not the adaptive is at work. I mean, that because we're always adapting to our environment. And your natural, it's your primary. Okay. Known for loyalty to friends and as a team player, hard worker, and a thorough researcher. Oh, wait, I already did that one. See, that's how much attention I pay to details. See what I'm saying? If I were analytic, I would have caught that. This person is motivated to be amiable, easygoing, and relaxed. Is a natural team player and enthusiastic. Likes to get results through others. May make some decisions without gathering all the facts necessary. Usually very optimistic, may be seen as unrealistic. Dislikes conflict. Comfortable talking with all types of people. May tend to judge others by their verbal skills. Shortcoming may be, I'm out of luck on that one. My accent keeps kicking in like every other word. Shortcoming may be the lack of time management, and his natural tendency to trust others may cause him to trust the wrong people. Okay, cool. So it's clicking, it's clicking. Let's do one last one. Highly competitive and somewhat egotistical, is always looking for a new challenge. High energy level may frustrate many coworkers trying to keep up. True visionary in his thinking, always looking at the big picture. Well-informed on many subjects, can talk spontaneously on almost anything, and has an opinion on everything. has a very private side to his personality that few people see, and therefore periodically requires a special place where he can be alone to think. Shortcoming may be his inability to sustain energy for project completion after the challenge has been conquered. Where would that be? Okay, cool. All right, are we all on board? That's a D, yeah, the high D. And of course, these are extremes in taking one personality into account, right? So like I said, it's always a combination. So don't pick one tendency and then, or don't try to go home and then, tag your partner, because some bad may happen. You're a driver. That's why I feel so bad. You know what I'm saying? Not that it's ever happened to me before. Okay. So how do you communicate with them? With each of the different behavioral tendencies. This is the kicker here. So we know how to tag them, how to see them, and how to kind of understand where they're coming from, right? So what do we tell them? How do we approach as far as communication goes? When communicating with a person who's ambitious, forceful, decisive, strong-willed, independent, and goal-oriented, which is a D, high D, make sure you're clear, specific, brief, and to the point. Okay? So it's that what answer. Unless they open up, to you and start telling you stories and conversation, and then you were able to build that rapport, and then by all means don't cut them back, don't cut them off or anything like that. Go with the flow. But the key, once you get to that point, is because you have built rapport, all right, and everything else is easier. Don't talk about stuff that is not relevant to the topic. In our case, if we're there and you see a picture of fishing, although they may love fishing, that's not why you're there. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, you can bring it up in kind of, like a token or something like that if the conversation kicks out for it, but don't focus on the fishing and then lose track of the real context because of what, because of an attempt to build rapport through something that you saw or familiarity. Does that make sense? When you're talking to a high I or a promoter, don't deal with a lot of details. Put them in writing. They want to see that stuff, and more than anything else, they want to see if they like you. Is this a person that I want to do business with, that I want to deal with? They want to talk. Let them talk. Go with the flow. Go with the conversation and build that rapport. Do not try to control the conversation as you're going. Of course, if you spend 2 hours on there, you have to bring it back at some point, right? But go with the flow of the conversation. Let them tell you whatever it is that they got to tell you, and they'll open up, and you'll build that rapport. We've seen it multiple times where we have a lock of property, and then we push it off to dispositions, but the rapport has been built, and I have that connection. So dispositions has to give them the information, and then I got to call them afterwards to tell them the same thing. And it's a process that happens all the time. It's just because of that rapport that was built during the initial connection. And it often happens with I's and S's, all right? Promoters and supportives. When you're talking to high supportive, begin with a personal, find a way to break the ice and make sure that you present your case non-threateningly. Meaning that, when you do a walkthrough, when you're gonna ask them about how much they're looking to sell their property for, don't make it a highlight, and don't make it like the core of the conversation, because it's just gonna raise a red flag. They're gonna feel threatened by that. Do a casual conversation. If you have to talk about 3 or 4 different topics before you get to the topic of how much for the property and the offer, do that. You have to spend time with, and this is somebody that requires time. Why? Because they need to have that emotional readiness to move forward with you, or to even think about doing business with you, even if they made up their mind about selling, When you're talking to a C or a high analytical, make sure that you prepare your case in advance. Like I said, these people, when you show up, they already looked at Zillow, they looked at, they talked to realtor friends and have 3 or 4 estimates for the value of the property. That's your classic and typical analytical person. With them, also pushing too hard is gonna be a deal breaker. Okay, they like supportives. They need to have that time to review the information and you just feel comfortable and make sure that it makes logical sense. To them, it's logic that's going to take time. To somebody who's high supportive, it's going to be that emotional readiness. That make sense? So what tendencies do other people exhibit that you wish were easier for you to exhibit, and why? And how would this affect your performance on the job? It's just one thing to ponder. You know, whenever if you're at a bar, if you're, at the store, at the grocery, start looking at behaviors. Start looking at people, and then, how are they dressed? Are they laid back? Are they, do they look controlling? Do they look like, somebody who's approachable? Do they look friendly? Are they just looking at every single price? And start tagging them, and that's how you're going to be able to come up to somebody and figure out within the first 30 seconds how you need to format your conversation. I mean, that's what I'm able to do right now, and that's what helps me push the deals forward and get the bigger spreads and that kind of stuff. We can probably talk about the strategies of negotiation and all that stuff, and diving deep into the spreads, using these principles in the next meetup. But it's one thing. Once you have that, I mean, you can use this with your family. I mean, if you're having an argument with your spouse, okay, how is she processing the information? Does she process the information the same way you do, or did you say something that maybe she misinterpreted, and then you got pissed off for it? Okay, how does that work? I mean, you can apply it there, apply it to your friendships. That's what he meant by being able to apply this everywhere you go, okay? Kids, man, this does wonders with my kids. Both of my kids, well, I have three. One it's a little red, so he's like that tall. But he's super, I mean, he's all about people, and he makes decisions really fast. My 10-year-old, he's a high C, and my daughter is a high C. So, I mean, those two just drive me nuts as far as, how long. Like, oh my God, come on, make up your mind. And my boy will look at statistics in sports and tell me all that kind of stuff. Like, I don't care, just tell me who won. So that's the kind of conversations that I have. But, now I'm able to understand that and dial it back. So it's not like, I don't try to push them because that's their natural behavior. But, I teach them to start understanding communication skills that way. Going back, how do you figure out where you're at? And this is that is my personality assessment, or my behavioral tendency assessment. Trimetrics DNA assessment. There's a few other DISC assessments. The one that we do through Epiphany, it talks about your behavioral, natural, and adaptive styles, which is the right and the left side and that stuff. General characteristics. How can you bring value to an organization? Or how can one of your employees bring value to an organization? Meaning that, what position would they be, a great fit for, and that kind of stuff. Putting the right butts in the right seats. Ways to communicate. How should people approach you, and how should you approach different people? Based on your strengths and adaptive styles. What are your perceptions? Meaning how you see the world, and how the world sees you. So when you walk, like for example, when I walk into a client, I have a pretty good idea of what they're looking at as far as, does he look prepared? Does he look like, he knows what he's talking about? And I mean, that's a first impression. It's not being shallow, but that's gonna, it's gonna get you a long way as far as building rapport. What are your driving forces? So what motivates you, to keep pushing forward? A lot of people don't even know that. Like, okay, what are your drivers? What makes you wake up in the morning? What do you, it's the assessment is 24 questions. It's done usually in under 30 minutes or something like that.
For the three sciences that you're talking about there, it's 30 to 40 minutes. For each one, it's about 10 to 15 minutes each.
Yeah. So, but it's a full, beefed up behavioral tendency assessment. Then it'll go into your time wasters. I have a lot of, to me, it's shiny objects. I got to focus on one thing and then just kind of get rid of everything else in my table. Otherwise, I'll get distracted super quick. Areas of improvement, success insights wheels. That's what we talked about earlier, where you fall into as far as your normal and your adaptive, and how does that create energy drain and stress in your performance. And what are your keys to motivation based on your tendencies. Keys to managing, how you can manage a team based on your behavioral tendencies and the way that you communicate, and also how can your manager approach you. So it's something really cool. I mean, we implement it on every organization that we talk to. It's one of the first things, because then we have a bottom line or a baseline foundation of, okay, this person needs to be approached like this. Don't be too fast with them, because they're going to lose them. You're not going to build rapport. They're not going to follow instructions, and it's just creates stress. And then you have your integration of behavioral strengths and driving forces on that. So it's a pretty beefed up assessment. If you guys want, we can give you more information on that later. Recap, keys to success is understanding yourself, recognizing and understanding and appreciating others, adapting your style, that's huge. Make sure that you're able to identify, one, and then two, figure out where you need to be as far as communication so you can get your context across the table. Not all the time, it doesn't happen all the time, and it doesn't happen by nature. It's something you gotta practice on, but it works. Practice the keys often that we talked about. Cool. All right. Cards? Yeah, they have the cards. The cards that you guys have, it's a really cool, quick reference. Does everybody have one?
I need one.
So on these you have quick indicators when you're memorize these. I mean, and this is a bulk of what communication really is. Any questions? Shoot.
So I have an appointment set tomorrow. Something that's been really difficult for me is handling meetings. I don't really possess a lot of those traits.
Mhm.
I can adapt to them and become that person that I need to be, but at the same time, I know personally it's hard. It seems kind of awkward if I try too hard. So I've always been confused on. So I talked to this person. We've had a conversation. And he totally showed those signs, so I kind of understand where he's coming from. But going to the table with negotiations, if he's wanting to combat and have that dominance and want to take charge, how do you conform to that in a way that makes him feel like it's something he can become negotiable with? Because he's going to want to be dominant, he's going to want to argue and do that, but at the same time, you don't want to push him way too far because he does get angry.
Yeah.
So that's something that's really confusing.
Where you're at? It's here. You're highest. Or it's one of your dominant tendencies. It's something like that. I mean, you have to stand your ground, right? So you have to actually adapt to an S behavior or to a D behavior. And it's really, I mean, it can be hard to break out of that shell and take that, take the bull by the horns, right, per se. But for somebody like that, what I would do is you run your analysis, you run your data, and you come to a stop. I mean, once they start, haggling you on pricing or that kind of stuff, and want to give you a higher, or you want to make you pay for the property, support your data. Tell them you don't have to go into a long explanation of it or look at all the statistics. Pick up your comps and tell them, you know what, this makes sense. These are logical thinkers as well. It's something that, okay, it's gonna make sense. I gotta move forward with it. But you have to stand your ground with somebody like that. Otherwise, you're gonna get run. I mean, they're gonna get plowed, ran over. Present the data. At the end of the day, I mean, you can't be too nice because he's gonna lose respect and they're gonna. It's gonna be, yeah, exactly.
They want to win.
Right. So they're looking for that W.
Yeah, so you have to let them feel like they won, in a way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
what's in it for them is what's going to really dominate.
Find the value. Find the value. What's in it? If the guy is looking, and be straight up with him. If the guy is looking for more money, tell him this is what makes sense for me as an investor. This is what I can offer you. Look at the comps. This is what's being sold. I mean, if you want more money for it, an investor is normally going to give you between this and that. But if you want more money, go retail. I'm not saying your property is not worth more. It's just I can't pay you that much. I mean, find out what your true cap is. If you have to take it up that far, even dial it back, a couple of 2% or something like that. But stand your ground at some point, and that's where you have to literally put up a wall. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
When you get to it.
Can I add just something real
Yes,
quick
please.
also? From the behavior standpoint, remember, if he's dominant, so I call it fiery red, okay? If he's at fiery red, he wants to take over, what's his biggest fear, okay? He has a fear of being taken advantage of. If you can remove that fear of him being taken advantage of their conversation, you win.
Right.
So what can you do from your position to remove that fear that you're gonna take advantage of him?
I want it for him. I want him to be
That's
provided.
it for him, that really what he's getting out of it, a win-win, that's what you're trying to pull out. As long as you're good, brief, and then you're gonna be gone, you win.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And if it makes sense, it makes sense. If not, we'll move on to the next lead.
Right.
Yeah, but you have to stand your ground.
Would it work to give them a lower offer than what you initially intended and then let them negotiate it back up? Would that make them feel like they've won?
Yes, depending on the amount of research that they've done. I mean, like I said, I mean, you may have a combination of a high D with a high C, right? And somebody that, makes decisions quick, and then they looked at all the data. And it's gonna be tough, it's gonna be tough to flip, something like that. But if you come in and make a really low ball offer, it's also, like a C, somebody who called, 3 or 4 or 5, investors as well, before they called you.
Right.
So when you're presenting a low ball offer, I mean, like for me, what I do, I have a justifiable range when I present my offer, and I talk. There's a presentation on this. I did a keynote at Sean's last.
Extreme freedom.
Yeah, Extreme Freedom, and the way I work it is I set up a range, right? So what's my lowest logical offer? And I won't offer anything below that. I mean, even if I could. Of course, what you want to do right out of the gate is have them present the number, right? I mean, you never know. Sometimes it's like maybe they just want to get out. They don't want to deal with anything, and they want to sure sell. On the other hand, maybe they want to capitalize on some money and then kind of mitigate the cost and all that stuff. So I build a range of my lowest logical offer, something that I can back up with, the condition of the property, something that I can back up with days on market, something that I can back up with, straight comps, legitimate comps within the area, and that kind of stuff. And that's going to be my lower range. And then I have my cap number, all right, the number that I will absolutely not go above. Why? Because even after you lock them, sometimes you have to come back and drop, do a price drop. So where's your margin there?
Right.
Yeah. So make sure that you have 2 numbers. When you throw a low ball offer, if you throw a low ball offer, make sure it's something that you can justify based on the
Right.
market.
Well, I was talking like in his case, you come in with that low ball, and then you've got that driver that wants to, take charge, and then he comes up and you say, well, I can't go X amount, but I can meet you halfway.
Okay.
Then they could possibly feel like, all right, I won.
Right.
I
Yeah.
got him to budge a little bit, even if it's, and a lot of times it's not even the amount, it could be just $500, $1,000,
Yeah.
but it's the idea
It's
that
a sense
that
of the
they got a
win.
little bit.
Then you have to agree with them.
Yeah,
Right.
right, it's the idea that they won, that
Mhm.
they.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So I have a question that's almost the opposite of his. When you're dealing with a supporter, where's the line between not pushing them and then giving them too much room, right? Because I've had a lot of times where I'm following up, I say, okay, I'm giving you information, I don't want to push you, I kind of see that they are not super decisive. They do want to sell, give them information, follow up, I sell it to this other guy, and it's infuriating.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, where is the line between giving them enough room and then saying, okay,
Setting down your
that's my
foot.
time too, yeah.
Yeah, so not wasting further time. What I do, one of my core questions is, what's your time frame? And that's initially, that's even before I talk about pricing, because that's when they're gonna be honest about it. Once you talk about pricing and you put the actual, hardcore data out there, they're gonna be they're gonna start thinking, okay, if he's asking me about time frame, like, do I wanna close quick? No, I don't need to close quick. Why? Because if I take longer, I'm gonna have, I'm gonna get more money for it. You know what I'm saying? So when they're gonna be honest, find the it's gonna be more than likely at the beginning of the conversation, right? So, can you tell me a little bit about the property? I'll do a walkthrough. Do you know of any issues with the plumbing and electrical, that kind of stuff? And then I'll squeeze in the question, what's your time frame? I mean, when are you looking to move out of town, or find out the story behind it? And then they'll answer that, and you'll know what their time frame is. I mean, right out of the gate, before you start talking numbers and the conversation gets deviated. So what I would do there, in what I've done, I left contracts behind, depending on the amount of rapport that you build. I mean, if you feel comfortable and it's kind of sketchy, you don't want to do that all the time, but I've left contracts behind or give them a deadline. You give me 24 hours. I mean, we have to hold back a budget or whatnot, and then 24 hours, and I can hold it for you. Other than that, it's going to be, I guess, leave it back at your discretion if you're going to, leave an open offer. For the only type of personality that I would do that for, or behavioral tendency, would be an S. I wouldn't do that for an analytic or driver or an I.
So a lot of times the place where I land will be, all right, me and my partners have, not an unlimited budget. We have to be able to set aside on the
Yeah, of
platform.
course.
So would it be fair if you let me know about this day, and I have them agree on a date?
Yeah.
Okay, but then the day comes, you still want the deal, right? So how do you play it after that?
Yeah, I mean, well, you pull the offer, the verbal. Yeah, you pull the verbal offer, and let me know if anything changes. I mean, just kind of leave it open like that. Just let them know that you're not gonna hold that budget. I mean, sometimes it's just what you got to do, and you have hot leads, and then you have so hot leads, and then you have just people who like to waste time. I mean, I wasted a lot of time with a lot of people, for a long.
And for them, I try to get those commitments out of them.
Right, micro commitments.
Yeah, micro commitments, and if they give me a date,
I talk a lot.
you're not keeping your word. You said by Friday,
Yeah.
you give me an answer. Why are you not giving? So you put them back, and they're like, oh, and some of those people, because of the supportive tendency, they really, like, I did give my word, okay. Can I have, sometimes I'll give them some breathing room, but I'm keeping strong, hard commitments and holding them firm to that. So, and part of that for me is, I'm also showing them that I'm keeping my word. I called you back on that day,
Right.
so.
It's not just building rapport at the appointment, it's sustaining that rapport throughout, the transaction. So you actually build up, like a mini relationship with them. And if it's strong enough, they're gonna call you back. If not, there's something else. You had a question, ma'am?
Yeah, so, your main goal is always get the appointment.
I'm sorry?
Your main goal obviously is to get the appointment, like get in the house, build the rapport, all of that type of thing.
Get the contract, yeah.
Yeah, but you gotta get to the appointment
Right.
first, right? So, do you notice one of the personalities having a hard time with even letting you in their house or setting the appointment? And
Yes.
how do you manage that?
Well, I mean, whenever, we have a multiple step process where calls come in, and then our Jake's one of them. I mean, so their job is to actually set up the appointment. So whenever they start talking and having a conversation about us coming into the property, they have to work around the biggest fear that Supportives has, which is safety, right? Like, I don't want people, I mean, a lot of the times, high S's want to sell through an investor because they don't want 1,000 people walking in through the property and looking at their belongings and looking, that kind of stuff, right? So, I mean, basically, you have to make them feel comfortable. You have to, build some credibility as to who is going to go over there. In my case, for example, they'll tell them that, the manager of acquisitions and has been in the company for 2.5 years, and so they'll give that person a little background on me. To the point where we send out an email, they'll respond to an email, I'll reply back and come from the appointment and that kind of stuff. So by the time I get to the door, they somewhat know me. Good question, yeah. Anybody else? We're all good?
I have a question.
I either nailed them all or.
No, I have a really quick question
Yeah.
for you. I'm a super high I, like extremely high, way up there. And I can relate really quickly with just about anybody with a C and a D, because I have some of that too. But my biggest challenge is the S people. I just don't know how to approach them. So in order for you to build rapport, what are some of your tips? Because you said that you're also a high I, and those are really hard to find.
Slow down, bro.
Besides slowing down.
Yeah. One thing that works really, really well is mirroring. Are you familiar with the concept of mirroring? I mean, do you practice it? I mean, do you just know about it, or do you actually practice it?
I tried practicing with my kids and wife, and it works wonders.
Okay. Do the same thing with clients.
Okay.
It's mirroring. When you're with them at the table, whenever they're standing next to you, you start mirroring their behaviors. And what happens is, remember we were talking about your conscious and then your subconscious, how everything that happens as far as body language is happening in your subconscious. So what happens, it starts picking that up. Okay. So next thing you know, you're building rapport without the need of that 7% of words. Okay. And it's something that I guess it's a deep subject, but basically it comes down to if you start mirroring, if you start behaving and dropping your speed of the conversation, mirroring some of the words, the type or the context of the conversation that you're having, basically what you're doing is you're putting your information on their notebook. You know what I'm saying? So they're able to catch it a lot sooner and build rapport, and then they start opening up because they have that familiarity with it, within that interaction. So if they're standing next to you, facing you, if they cross your arms, and literally, I mean, it's a mirror. If they put their hands in their pocket, put your hands in their pocket. One thing to watch out for after you do it enough, practice this with your family because you have, set rapport. after you do it for a while, I mean, and do it, I do it at, at bars and parties and stuff like that, and it's pretty funny. But you start doing your movements, right? And then next thing you know, somebody's mirroring you subconsciously. They just build rapport. You have enough rapport built that they'll start doing and mimicking your movements. Watch out for that stuff. Practice it at home with somebody who you already have rapport with, and you'll see how it kicks in. And then after a while, I'll cross my arms, and then it'll happen, 30, 45 seconds, they'll cross their arms. I'll cross my legs. I'll, keep my hand on my head for a while, and then after a while, they get itchy. You know what I'm saying? And that's how you build rapport. So yeah, but with S's, slow down and then do a lot of mirroring. I mean, that works. And that works for every behavioral tendency.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions? No? Good? Awesome. Oh, okay. There you go.
How do you do it over the phone?
Over the phone, conversation, look at the wordings or listen to the wordings.
Sometimes it's, you're trying to talk to them and mirror them at the same time. It's like doing things at once.
Yeah, you're a DC, aren't you? The over the phone, listen to how they talk to you. Is it somebody that comes up to you and say, "Hey, bro, I got to do this. Bro, listen, I have to, sell my house." I know we want to be professional on the phone. You start off with the conversation, be professional, and painting that whole picture, right? After you get into a few minutes of conversation, you can start dropping those words in every now and then. That's the best way that I found to mirror over the phone, is using the same language that they're using and verbiage, and reciprocating that back to them. And it's just like, all right, it puts you on the same notebook. David?
Pace.
Including pace. There you go, yeah. Pace and tonality, of course. So if they talk slow, talk slow. If their tonality is, it's a little setback or, high or low, adjust to that stuff. So words, tonality, and pace. Yeah?
No, I just wanted to add something besides what you just said. There's, I think, 3 types of people who is visual. If they say I see, you have to follow this I see. If they say I hear, then you have to follow it how you do over the phone. Touchy-feely, I feel. That's how you do over the phone.
Straight from Cialdini right there. Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, so people like, for example, I'm highly visual, right? So whenever I talk, I tend to say I see instead of saying I feel. I see your point, or instead of, I feel your concern or your point. And so that kind of word, or little cues like that in conversation, they're gonna give you insight as to how they, perceive when you're not face to face and you're not able to assess a conversation like that. Cool. Alrighty. Any other questions? Go ahead.
Well, how about the repair sheet? So does that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's one of my ways to get spreads. So for spreads, if you want to get technical and pragmatic, I see. It's going to be you look at your your lower comps. You use that for a spread, right? And when you come in, you use the amount that you can assess the repair value to, or that amount. Use that as a spread, and then basically use those numbers as cushion to logically explain your bottom offer. Okay, so the bigger the cushion is between the repair sheet and the lower comps, it's the bigger cushion you have to have a logical explanation of that lowball offer that you're going to give, at the beginning. Cool. But yeah, I use it all the time.
Yeah, just real quick question. How do you let them know that you are in this to make a profit, that it's going to be sold for probably more than what you're buying for or anything like that? Or
Exactly like that. Yeah, we actually have a clause in the contract at the end of the contract, and a lot like Reds don't. When you have a high driver, they don't want to go through all the verbiage. Analytics may, and sometimes I've had to sit through it. But one thing I always emphasize is the highlights of the contract, right? So I come from the property, I come from the owners, I come from the amount, the closing date, and that kind of stuff, and then I'll go on to the final clauses, which is this. We're letting you know that we're investors. We're gonna either flip, assign, rehab, or buy and hold the property. So we're gonna make money off of the property. We're looking for revenue on it. And yeah, I mean, it's like somebody, if you in conversation, even just keep that out of the conversation with for example, with an S, and they find out, they'll take that as a straight up lie. dishonesty and stuff like that. And it's not necessarily that you're lying, you're just omitting information, right? But they'll interpret it as that. So it's, be crystal clear. That's what we're intending to do.
Just to add on to that real quick, I just want to ask, Jake just started with us. He just graduated high school, so he just started with us. He's on the phone. So putting you on the spot, seller script. Tell us what we say in the seller script. On the phone, the very first time we talked to them.
Introduce yourself and, just try to get to know them, build rapport, and then don't just jump in to just, trying to find that information.
Do we tell them that we're investors and we're trying to make a profit?
Yeah, straight up, just
Right.
tell them,
Yeah, just got it, cash money, yeah.
Right out of the gate. Question over here.
With every appointment that you go on, what percentage, once you present the contract, what percentage actually sign right then and there, would you say?
About 30.
30, and
Yeah.
then that's where the other 70, you're saying 70%. So you walk out and they're like, let me think about it, no,
Yeah,
something.
and in today's market, you see it more and more often. Why? Because there's a ton of us out there.
Yeah.
They just know that the marketing is everywhere. You see bandit signs, you see letters, so they know there's a lot more options.
Okay.
So now the tendency is to let's do a little bit further research. But about maybe 30, 35, somewhere in there, they'll sign right there and then it's all about the rapport that you're able to build there, and then work your follow-ups.
What's your follow-up process that you?
Conversational.
No, but so once you leave the house, like, is it you follow up the next day, you follow up the next week? Like, do you have an actual process that you do?
Yeah, what I do, good question. What I do is it's once I leave the property, I find a way to send them something that they can see of value. Even, if it's something, some of the comps that we talked about, or something like that, it's just a way to touch base. It can even be a text. You know what I'm saying? Then I'll do a phone call a day or two later, and depending on the pressure that I want to put into that person. If it's somebody who's a high S and they told me they're not gonna be ready to make a decision until next week, I'll probably call them at the end of the week, or send them a message, or do a soft contact with them. But it's all in the you gauge it as you see it. Somebody who's really, really hot and looking to sell quick, stay on them day after day. And then somebody who's might be cooler and looking to sell in 30 days or something like that, yeah, you can just tailor it for it. That answer your question? Okay.
How many appointments do you go on a day normally?
3 to 5, or between on average, busy
Okay.
days. Yeah, and it varies.
I was going to point out, everyone has a smartphone now, right?
Yeah.
So everyone can text, everyone can make a phone call. What else can you do with your smartphone? Email. And what else?
video.
And video. Yeah, it actually works. It's amazing. And I've been testing something else with on Gmail. You can have an add-on on there, and you can do a video right from your laptop, explain the contract in video form right after you got done talking with them, and then it's just so much easier to have that conversation after you call them to see that they got the email and everything like that. So use all the tools you have. I really would suggest that. Quick question for you, Raphael. So, $1 million revenue is a lot. How did you get so smooth?
I shower with zest every day. That's a Mexican joke. I don't know. What do you mean,
You get the results. How
Oh,
does someone that's just starting out get to that point?
practice and don't be afraid. Set up your intention on what you want to do. And we were talking about this. This has been the topic for the last month.
Yeah.
Set up your intention on what you want to do. Do you want to really get better at negotiating? Then set up your intention on that and practice that kind of stuff. Practice this kind of stuff whenever you talk to somebody, whenever you see your friends, when you think of your friends, I get so excited. Whenever you think of your friends, peg them. It's like, okay, this guy is like this. Oh man, he sounded like a jerk because he might be a red, and he was under stress. I get it. You know what I'm saying? So start pegging that kind of stuff. Once you get to a point where you can identify people like right out of the gate, it's everything starts clicking in. So it's a process. Practice, repetition, process, and then never stop growing. But make the intention of doing so. Okay.
One of the things I was going to let you know about Raphael is I had the luck of being able to go on a few appointments as he was first starting out. And it was his anniversary the first night. And
First day,
yeah,
yeah.
we got that deal. We got a deal on the first night. And then I remembered going on an appointment with him right up here in Glendale. the people would not spit out an offer price. Like they were just stuck. And I just kind of let him roll with the, turn the reins over to him. And then, and we had a conversation before we got in there, hey, if they don't come up with the price, we got to hit them so low, it almost makes you kind of sick to your stomach a little bit, And we hit them so low, there's a husband, a wife, and the daughter, and they all pushed away from the table immediately. And then he reined them back in because they're both from Yuma. He had that rapport built so strong, and we got that contract.
The offer talk came, after maybe 40 minutes of being there?
Yeah.
I mean, so we had a flat out conversation and that, sorry.
We were sitting down, so you're standing, you're having the conversation, building rapport standing. When you sit down, you're doing numbers, right? And whenever that came through, whenever he did that, and then he wheeled that in and locked in that contract, I just knew that he was ready to roll. He was ready to go on his own. But one of the things I was going to say too is practice. Just go on as many appointments. And sometimes I'll go on appointments, I know that there's not really much of a deal there, and not much chance. But I'm gonna go to try to improve my skills or stay on top of my game too. So real quick, I just wanna point out Emmanuel. We did a deal last month, right?
Yeah, that's one.
So how much did you profit on your 50% on that?
It was like almost $4,000, right?
Okay, good. Can you guys give them a round of applause? Jerry, you're going on an appointment tomorrow with Raphael, right?
Correct.
You think it's going to be pretty nice to have someone like him with you on that appointment?
Absolutely, he's the man.
Now, how many of you guys would like to have someone that produces $1 million in a year for a company go on an appointment with you?
You can come with me tomorrow if you want.
If you guys,
Reds are my favorite, bro.
he gets along with
No
everyone.
joke.
He's so adaptive.
We come in and start high-fiving, yeah.
So
Yeah, let's get it done, yeah!
I remember you got a deal with the guy from New York, right? He was super high red. It was like a rental property.
Oh, yeah.
And a lot of it was done over the phone as a follow-up thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that was a conversation where I had to well, I didn't really have to adapt much because of when we had similar behavioral tendencies, but that was a conversation over the phone, on the phone where we built, pretty good rapport. Yeah, all right.
If you guys would like to have someone, or Raphael, go on an appointment with you, can I see those raising hands again? Okay, if you guys have any appointments coming up, let me know. I'll vet it, and if it works, I'll send Raphael with you. Does that sound like a deal? Okay. And imagine doing a 50-50 split, okay? It's one thing to get $4,000 or $5,000 on the deal. We have 6 deals closing. Do you know what the revenue is on that? Your 6 deals that are closing this week?
We were talking about on Monday, was it 250?
Yep.
Yeah.
6 deals, 250,000 revenue. You guys interested? Okay, cool. So
All right.
make sure you guys let me know, and then we'll vet the appointment just to make sure it's a true appointment, and then we'll make sure that if we can get them on the calendar, we'll get them out there with you. Okay?
You feel like we're in the valley?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yeah.
More of a personal question, but having been, and you made this comment too, but having been an entrepreneur, why do you work with Sean Terry? Why do you go just do your thing?
Honestly, I love the team. I mean, I have my own real estate business. I'm a licensed real estate agent. I have a couple of different projects, stuff that I'm always running. I mean, I work here and I'm dedicated here, but I have my stuff going on as well. So I mean, my entrepreneur spirit is still flowing and thriving. But I mean, where else can I rub shoulders with people like Sean, like Kent and those guys? To me, it's an environment that I embrace. And I'm really, really, really big on growth and learning from the people that that you aspire to be like or that you admire. I mean, you can start off with respect if you want. I mean, learning from that kind of environment, to me, it's gold. So.
One of the things too about Sean is he encourages this entrepreneurial spirit. Like I don't think he would let someone work for him that didn't have the same type of drive and passion that he has, or it wouldn't be a good fit. But he's very results oriented. We need to make sure we do our job, but he gives us a lot of autonomy. How many days are you in the office?
1. So I have the freedom. For me, it works out. I get a lot of exposure. I'm, negotiating. I love, meeting people. I love, putting transactions together, making, seeing that the deal. How is it going to work? How can I get it? So I love that challenge, right? And I'm getting a lot of exposure there. I have a lot of autonomy, and it's just no micromanaging, which, to an entrepreneur is like music to my ears.
What percentage of your, if you're okay sharing these numbers, but what percentage of your meetings are like you got the lead yourself versus the company brought it in?
We do a lot of aggressive marketing in the company. I mean, so it's, for the vast majority, everything comes in through the marketing generator. I mean, it's just like tens of thousands of dollars every month spent. And
We rank our appointments on high, medium, and low probability. Right. So would I want someone that is like a home run hitter going on a low probability appointment 5 days a week? No, I don't. What's that going to do to his self-esteem and his motivation, right? No, I want him going at bat and having the best chance of getting a home run or a double or triple every time at bat. So the way we rank our appointments through the data that we gathered, everything that Jake asks all of our sellers and stuff, if we peg them as a high, that means he has the best chance of getting that deal, and we know that there's actually a profit to be made. So
there's
we
a lot
try
of
not to
vetting
send
that
them
goes
on a lot of. I mean, he still goes on appointments that aren't going to work out. That's just
for the practice, though. I mean, to
Yeah.
me, if I let's say that I call a client and I want to confirm the appointment, or I saw it and it's kind of crappy, and it's not going to pan out. Maybe I know right out of the gate it's not going to pan out, but the person, it might be like that, sickness in me or whatnot, but the person sounds interesting, I'll still go to the appointment just to have that, hence the yellows want the experience, right? So I want to see where that's going to take me. What's it going to teach me? So to me, every appointment is a training, is a class.
Sorry, guys.
I was just gonna say, how do you do that when you go on those appointments? Like you're offering it to go on appointments with people. How do you guys? What's the benefit to you?
We'll
guys?
do a joint venture, so good question. We'll do a joint venture with you. It's a 50-50 split. So whatever profit we make, my very first deal I ever did wholesale-wise was with Sean Terry. And my goal is to make $5,000 in 30 days by my birthday. Made $5,500 the day after my birthday. So, that was my very first deal. But imagine getting someone that can get in there and negotiate a $45,000 spread or $60,000 spread. Would that change your year? Yeah.
So if someone does their marketing, they have the lead, you go on the appointment, and then
we'll take it all from there. We have a whole dispositions team. We have over 33,000 buyers on our buyers list, on our email list right now.
Okay.
We have a VIP list that will text message deals out to that buyers list, and they jump on that quick. Right now, we just cleared a board. We only have like 2 properties left.
So you do it from the negotiating to the selling all the way through?
Yeah.
Okay.
What if someone doesn't want to go on the appointment? Like if I generate some leads, but I don't want to go on the appointment, is that?
We can talk about that, yeah. I'm open to stuff. It may not be a 50-50 split. Part of the process, the reason why we do that, Sean's big into teaching and sharing. He doesn't want to just give you a fish. He wants to teach you how to fish so you can do this for yourself. And that's part of the whole project. He's a really big giver. He shares all of his information pretty much for free. I mean, he does have programs and stuff out there.
I
but
stalked Sean for
his podcast, right?
Yeah, for like 2.5 years before I started working for the guy.
I think Sean Terry is great in his information. We're part of the boardroom with
absolutely.
Sean Terry, and so we believe in it. I was just curious, how that.
He doesn't even offer this. He doesn't even offer this for the boardroom.
What's that?
Right? He doesn't even offer this, like to send his $1 million man out with any of the boardroom members, correct?
No, I haven't heard it.
No. No, he doesn't. It's only for our local market right here.
Yeah, and you said you do training for acquisitions, because we've got acquisitions. You do like a 5-6 hour training for specifically dig deeper on more of the acquisitions?
That would be through his coaching and his training, stuff like that. But we're here. I'm the COO. I handle basically the real estate side for Sean. Sean's in San Diego right now. Before that, he was on vacation for a couple weeks. He likes to be hands off, but he's not hands off. He knows what's going on. He has a pulse on the company.
Yeah.
Even whenever he goes to his beach house in the summertime, he still will call into our Monday morning meetings, or he'll still follow up with us through Slack and making sure that we're hitting our numbers and hitting our results. But that's the goal, right? As an entrepreneur, is to get a team in place to do everything that you need to get done, so you can have a business that's continuously making over $100,000 every month. You know, so. Was this good information tonight?
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. All right, can we give Raphael a round?
Appreciate your patience.
Yeah, no problem. Jake, I need you to pick a number between 1 and 19.
10.
10. David Gutierrez. Okay, little Apple gift card. Thanks for coming tonight. Hopefully you don't have a Android phone.
Hey, you need a soundtrack, dude, or something to kind of pick up your
By the way,
That's a yellow.
if you got hired and you worked in Sean's office, he will not let you have any non-Apple products.
Fine by me.
Okay, I need a number 1 through 22.
22.
Jamal Brown.
That's me.
All righty. There you go. All right, hey guys, we'll be hanging around for a few minutes if you have any questions for Raphael, for myself. But we are looking for people to joint venture with. We have hungry buyers. Like, our property is getting sold fast, we just can't keep inventory in there. So even if you have deals right now that you're having trouble get sold, let me know. Come talk to me, okay?
It's the best number to call you.
My cell phone. I gave my card if you need one.
Yeah, I just wanted to